Good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. And got something for the road for once. It's not Lucasy this time. Not walking under the influence this afternoon. No, I was just doing it in the morning. But of course, you didn't come here to find out about the crimes I've committed in the morning. No, you come for some more politics. So I shall not disappoint, or I'll try not to. God, it's like a sinking ship, isn't it, folks? Keir the Traitor Starmer at the helm, and then we see all the rats coming out of their holes, fleeing the sinking ship. Now it turns out that Keir the Traitor Starmer is getting freebies from the union, and I'm getting a beak on my way. But he's getting freebies from the union, including tickets to Taylor Swift's concert, worth £4,500. I kind of feel for the unions, actually. What a waste of £4,500. You could easily get a few games of golf with that, with the one and only former President Trump. That is, of course, if he hasn't got a shooter trying to take his head off. But it does make sense now why all of a sudden he is set to try and get massive pay rises for people in the unions. Because as I've mentioned before, Keir the Traitor Starmer only cares about Keir the Traitor Starmer himself. It's kind of funny though, when you think about it. In 2 months, it's not been that long yet, in just over a month, or if you want to get really technical, 6 weeks, he has become the world's most hated UK Prime Minister. A man universally condemned by every known world leader and by the vast majority of British people, who now, in recent polls, over half of the kingdom thinks that Keir the Traitor Starmer is putting the UK in the wrong bloody direction. But don't just take my word on this one. Look it up for yourself. And on top of all this, we've got Yvette Clueless Cooper, who is now trying to make misogyny as bad as terrorism. And Jess Phillips wants to back this shit. So it does beg the question, where are we going to see extreme misandry or extreme feminism come under terrorism? Ignoring the cars, do you hear the crickets? That is because there is going to be absolutely no one speaking out for this. I wonder why that is, Jess Phillips? You know what they say? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you can't dish it, then you shouldn't actually put it out there in the first place, quite frankly. If you can't take it, don't dish it. That was what I was trying to say. The words were failing me. Or another more cliche and boring one, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Or Tate would probably say, get back in the kitchen. Anyway, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Speaking of Andrew Tate, this is actually a point where I disagree with this guy on, where I've agreed with him before, i.e. the riots. But as someone who's converted to Islam, this guy, he believes that women are the property of men. No, they're not. Just as men are not the property of women. Nobody is anybody's property. You can be a free man or woman if you so wish to be. But what this does, on a more serious note, is it makes it so they're broadening the horizons of what could be considered far right. The irony is, there is an actual far right, as I've said many times before, and it comes through Sunni Islam. The teachings of Islam teach the brainwashed, brain-dead individuals of Islam that it is perfectly okay to take white women as sex slaves. That it is perfectly acceptable to marry a child, Aisha and Allah, ring any bells? Or what literal cavemen like Muhammad Hijab say, where if she's got a big enough rack and a big goddamn ass, then she's fit to marry, which obviously is bullshit. Last time I checked, I thought the age of consent was like 18 or something. Or it should be. But Islam believes taking white women as slaves, that you can marry children. They fundamentally believe that you can beat your wife if she is insubordinate, and that all women in general can be considered second-class citizens, or treated as such. But of course the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks, because say it with me, it doesn't suit the narrative. I mean, Jess Phillips should know better at the end of the day, considering she's had to face a lot of abuse from pro-plasticine, to which as I find, stroke number one, as much as I find Jess Phillips reprehensible, just like Keir the Traitor Starmer, I wouldn't call for any of them to be harassed or violently assaulted or left traumatised. What I will say, however, about Keir the Traitor Starmer and the police, as I've said before and will say again, is that while I do not advocate for violence or looting or pillaging or a violent revolution, anything that does happen to the police or Keir the Traitor Starmer, they only have themselves to blame. Time to reiterate an old point again like a broken record. Fear not the enemy that is clambering at the gates, but fear the enemy that within that'll hold the gates open for them. But as I said, what they're doing with this misogyny is basically going to be classed as terrorism, is they are expanding the horizon and lowering the bar on what can be considered far right. So if I say, for example, and obviously I don't mean this because I'm just using it as an example, if I were to say Jess is a fat old cow, is that now going to be considered far right? Is that going to be considered terrorism? Because if it is, then it truly does set a very dark precedent for the country. An idea that literally calling somebody names or slagging a person off because they're a woman, which, let me be clear, I don't condone in any way, shape or form. I'm against sexism, I'm against racism with every fibre of my being, and I am against discrimination based off of any traits. But the mere idea alone that you can literally label somebody as a terrorist just because they're being sexist is truly mind-boggling. Should a person be punished if they show blatant sexism? Oh, 100%. I do believe they should be punished. I do believe if you're going to be a chauvinistic pig, then yes, you should be punished, quite frankly. But to be punished on a terrorism law? Come on, man. Where's the... Well, I know where the common sense is. Very fucking rare, and someplace which I probably don't know about. But what this boils down to is to compare sexism to terrorism is like accidentally hitting a bollard with a car versus a person going around and stabbing kids. Oh, wait. Speaking of stabbings, there's been another lately in Manchester where a woman has been killed, God rest their soul, and I pray for the poor sod who's in, I think, critical condition. And apparently there are people that are so afraid to speak out that they don't even want to come to assumptions for fear they might get arrested. I have a couple of assumptions right now, which I am going to say are speculation and alleged at the time, because obviously I don't know 100% for certain, but I suspect it's going to be another one that came in from over yonder, or it's going to be one of the people that isn't true English heritage, or is intolerant of our beliefs, like Sunni Islam. But obviously, as I said, this is speculation, and I cannot 100% confirm this yet. But I will put the point again to Jess Phillips and Yvette Clueless Cooper. If you're willing to make misogyny akin to terrorism, will we see you do the same thing with extreme feminism, I wonder? Will we see you take the same approach as labeling people who are extremely misogynistic as terrorists? Will we see the same approach towards those who are extremely misandric, who are extremely feminist and extremely hateful to men? Like I said, I think we're going to hear a lot of crickets and not a lot of voice of condemnation from those two evil women. Oh, I'd love for them to prove me wrong, but I suspect I've already hit the nail on the head, and I'm just drilling the fucker in just for good damn measure, which is something the mainstream media will of course not want to tell you about. Oh Christ, nearly fell head over arse. Man, the guy is in a hurry to get me home. Anyway, the point is, we're not going to see the same level of contempt towards women as we are going to see to men if this law does come into play. What I also find particularly egregious is The Independent, once again, putting out an article claiming that half the voters believe Nigel Farage sparked those riots. No, he fucking didn't. What this is more that legendary art of projection, where they want to pin this on Nigel Farage because the left-wing NPCs don't want to take any accountability. They don't want to admit that the Traitor Starmer is the primary person who is responsible for stoking the flames of these riots. He is the one man who is responsible for garnering up so much hatred towards the government. The Traitor Starmer is the only person who is to blame for what's going on across the country. And anybody who wants to try and say it's Nigel Farage needs to get themselves looked up and checked out from the neck up. Nigel Farage has even gone out of his way to condemn the rioters. Now tell me, if he really was the person instigating these riots, do you think he'd be condemning them? Or do you think he'd be like, yeah, go on boys, give them what for. Do that violence, do that rioting, do the looting and pillaging. Like, sometimes it makes me beg the question, what's the point arguing with these fucking NPCs? The same politician though, Nigel Farage, was very quick to throw Tommy Robinson under the bus. Well, thankfully it's not this one, at least I don't think so. Anyway, he was very quick to throw Tommy Robinson under the bus when, once again, Tommy Robinson is not responsible for the riots. If anything, he has actually called for people to calm down, to not get violent, and a lot of prominent YouTubers, and even myself as a non-prominent one, have been actively saying do not go to the protests. Because at the end of the day, this is a trap. They are trying to bait us in to get the chaos they want, to get the pictures they want, the footage they want, so they can crack down on the British people. That's what it boils down to. And this misogyny thing that they're trying to bring in as terrorism is merely another attempt to lower the bar as to what could be considered far right and terrorism. Isn't it funny how they want to come after us for words on the internet, misinformation on the internet, gritting our teeth at the police? Because one person has been sentenced to, I believe it was like 26, 28 months just for doing that. Where will you hear that in the mainstream media? Where will you hear that as far as the left wing are concerned? People should be fucking outraged at this shit. And yet a lot of people are more than willing to sit here and say, nah, this is fine. This is all fine. No, it's not fine. It's two-tier policing. Because they would never dare to raise a finger, let alone a baton, to the Islamists, to the Lives Matter, or maybe I was right first time, or of course the pro-plasticine movements. They won't ever do it to them, because they know they would have riots that will make the ones that have happened over the last couple of weeks look like picnics. That's what we won't hear from the mainstream media. We won't hear from them that the police are running like cowards when it comes down to Islam. We won't hear that shit. But they will happily broadcast far-right protesters being arrested, or far-right get violent with the police, or do riots, or do looting and pillaging. And let me be absolutely clear, I'll condemn the riots and all that shit, and the violence and what have you, whichever side it is, right, left, or even bloody centre. Don't give a shit. It's called a moral compass. I have standards, principles, whereas the left don't have jack shit, quite frankly. And I will always keep saying things like this, because as I've said many times before, and I will reiterate, I am not going to sugarcoat a fucking thing. I'm not going to mince my words, and I'm going to say it exactly how it is, because a lot of the British public feel exactly the same fucking way that I do. They're fed up of career politicians stabbing the British people in the back, and in Keir the Traitor Starmer's case, prioritising protecting the enemy of the British people, that is radical Islam and illegal immigrants who come over here to stab our kids. He wants to protect them. He wants to protect terrorists and criminals over the British people. And he wonders why people are pissed off with him, and why people are now beginning to protest, not only because of the fact that children are being killed, but they're protesting against the very government itself. You don't have to like Tommy Robinson. You don't have to like me. But surely anybody with a shred of common sense will realise exactly what's going on here. We are seeing blatant two-tier media, two-tier policing, and two-tier governing. If you're not white, we'll protect you. If you're white British working class, we're gonna fuck you in the arse. You won't need sex because we'll fuck you every day. That's their motto. Keir the Traitor Starmer taking freebies to a Taylor Swift concert, trying to go off on holiday while the country burns, trying to sentence ordinary concerned parents and patriots for being worried about the children and the state of our country. He wants to send them to prison and will fast track them to prisons. Yet we haven't seen the same happen to Ricky Jones, who wanted to have all the people on the supposed far right, who are fascists, have this happen to them. Where's his fast tracking? Where's the fast tracking for that piece of shit, Axel Radukabana, who's gone and killed 3 kids, God rest their souls? Where's their fast tracking? Oh, that's right. He's not white British. That's why they're not doing it. And they can sit here and preach misinformation. No, it is the right information. Because I'll tell you right now, I would never willfully lie about what's going on. I've said it many times before. I'll do my best not to bullshit you. And if I do make a mistake, I'll put my hands up and I say, I fucked up. Simple as that. Will you see that from the mainstream media? Or Keir the Traitor Starmer himself? Like fuck, will you? You'll be lucky if he admits to losing a £5 note under the couch. I wouldn't trust Keir the Traitor Starmer to run a bath, let alone the country. Yet we're supposed to have trust in this government, and the fact that they're trying to bring in this idea of extreme misogyny can be treated as terrorism. But they're not going to look at the other side, let's face it. They won't dare do that. Bunch of fucking hypocrites, the lot of them. I do find it rather cute, though, that the papers are trying to say Keir the Traitor Starmer is still more popular than Rishi Sunak. No shot is he more popular. Like, you have got to be kidding me on that one. I must admit, I did need a good laugh of the day, and that one definitely gave me one, let me tell you. More popular than Rishi Sunak. My God. I want whatever drugs you're smoking right now, Independent, because they seem like the good shit. Let me tell you, that seems like the good shit that I need to be able to cope with a lot of the shit that's going on in this world. Like, just give me that blunt. I feel so much better already. Anyway, they must be doing some seriously powerful drugs to think that Keir the Traitor Starmer is more popular than Rishi Sunak. Rishi the Slippery Sunak was the worst Conservative Prime Minister we've had. Pretty close second is Boris Johnson. But you know what? At least he didn't try to suppress free speech. At least he didn't try to suppress the British people. At least he isn't protecting the enemy rather than his people. You cannot, with a straight face, tell me that Keir the Traitor Starmer is more popular than Rishi Sunak. That blows my mind to pieces right now. The same traitorous Prime Minister that is literally getting the police to go after ordinary people, where the police have even been filmed saying to just grab people, to just go and arrest people. Basically, arrest them for no reason. And you want to tell me that Keir the Traitor Starmer is more popular? Maybe it's time to wake these people up from the matrix that they're living in. The way I look at this is these people in government are dangerous. They are very, very, very dangerous people. The Labour Party, the Labour government, clearly will stop at nothing to see the country sink into the ocean. They will do it by hook or by crook. They will do it in any which way they can. All the while, Keir the Traitor Starmer is doing everything he can to go off on holiday and enjoy time off while the country he's supposed to protect and serve is burning all around him. I guess it's no wonder they want places like X banned in the UK, because they don't want the British people learning the truth. They don't want people like Elon Musk dropping truth bombs on the establishment of traitors. They don't want people like Elon Musk being able to showcase the pure hypocrisy, ignorance, and treachery that our politicians are committing right now. Their contempt towards the British people is absolutely unequivocally unmatched. It is a sad state of affairs when your government is more interested in housing migrants versus actually housing some of the 300,000 plus British homeless people there are. Do you know what further insults me? You know what really brings my piss to a boil though? And I only found this out on Saturday. I might have already covered it in my previous video, but there was actually something I wanted to bring up. I don't know if I have already. I literally can't remember off the top of my head. But Keir the Traitor Starmer is giving these migrants money. Well, that's nothing new, but they're doing it as well. They are making the elderly suffer by taking away their winter fuel saving payments. I'm going to repeat that just so it sinks in. The illegal immigrants that Keir the Traitor Starmer and his government are paying, some of these payments are not just coming out of the British taxpayers' money, they're coming out of the elderly's winter fuel saving payments. If that does not showcase the absolute contempt this man has, nothing ever will. Nothing. We could literally have what few veterans we have living in their homes right now that are literally going to end up not being able to have their heating on potentially if they have no money because they needed that winter saving payment. Think about it. They would rather let our home veterans who fought in 2 world wars for us and potentially gave their lives for, they would rather see them go cold than actually help them. They would rather help the illegal immigrants of this country that have no legal or human right to be here than actually ensure that our veterans are warm this winter. What say you, Keir the Traitor Starmer? Are you going to tell us the truth now? Or do we need to further expose you and show your treachery, deceit and contempt for the British people? This is why people like me are always going to exist. And unlike a lot of people, I'm not afraid of the consequences anymore. Because there was some things that Tommy Robinson mentioned in the past when he once led the EDL. We needed to either be prepared to get killed or go to prison. Well, I'm no longer afraid anymore. I don't have that much. You could argue that I have next to nothing to lose. And there is only one person that is more dangerous than a terrorist, and that literally is someone who has nothing to lose, quite frankly. Keir the Traitor Starmer truly is vile, repugnant, abhorrent, and treacherous in every sense of those words. As I said before, he makes Tony the war criminal Blair look like a saint. How sad is it that we're literally willing to give just a slight tinge more credit to Tony Blair than we are to Keir the Traitor Starmer, when they're both reprehensible people in and of their own rights. Like I said in one of my other videos as well, we're not living in a democracy. We're living in a dictatorship. Or again, maybe I was right first time. We're living in a dictatorship where we have traitors who will prioritize holding the gates open for the enemy while they flood in, killing innocent people, killing our communities, killing our economy and NHS, rather than do their one civic duty. Well, as tyranny becomes law, resistance will become duty. Well, as long as I've got a hole in my arse, I will do my civic duty. I will do everything in my power, and then some, if I want to go above and beyond. The traitors like Keir the Traitor Starmer, Yvette Cooper, Jess Phillips, David Lammy, or Knob if you want to call him that. These are the types of people who, when the going gets tough, the worms get going. Because that's what they are. They're worms, maggots, they're cowards. If they were asked to inspire the troops, they would soon run to the nearest nuclear bunker. These traitors would rather leave us out hanging to dry than actually inspire us akin to Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill was a man who inspired. Keir the Traitor Starmer is a man who would alienate the very people who are meant to protect him. Our soldiers would never serve Keir the Traitor Starmer. In fact, if anything, our soldiers would be seeking to take down the traitors in our midst. Well, as I said, I am going to do my civic duty. I am going to do everything I physically fucking can to make sure I expose these traitors, every single one of them, and make sure if they come out with any extra bullshit, I will leave them with no fucking defense whatsoever. I will make sure that they are held to account, roasted over a spitfire, and if these guys try to run, I will do everything I can to expose their hiding spots, where they like to run. I will make sure the traitors have nowhere to hide.